Ambassador Vex'Nor stood before the Galactic Federation's High Council, 6 tentacles clasped formally behind his back in the traditional posture of diplomatic readiness. His chromatophores were set to a respectful blue-green, though he couldn't help the occasional ripple of ambitious purple that flashed across his epidermis. At only 87 cycles old, being selected for a solo diplomatic mission was unprecedented. His superiors had often remarked that he was the most promising envoy to emerge from the Academy in generations. "Ambassador Vex'Nor," began High Councillor Drellmin, her voice resonating through the chamber with the perfect monotone of a being who had purged all emotional inflection from her speech patterns 2 centuries ago. "You have been selected for a mission of considerable uniqueness." Vex'Nor's skin flashed a brief, excited yellow before returning to the proper blue-green. "I am honored to serve the Federation in any capacity, High Councillor." "Yes, well." Drellmin exchanged glances with the other council members. "The assignment concerns a recently classified planet in the outer spiral arm. The inhabitants call it Earth." A holographic projection of a blue-green world appeared in the center of the chamber. Vex'Nor studied it with interest. Rather pretty if unremarkable. "Earth was discovered approximately 30 rotations ago," continued Councillor Froptal, his 3 eyes blinking in asynchronous patterns that subtly conveyed his discomfort. Initial observations classified it as a pre-unification civilization, barely past their fossil fuel stage. However, subsequent findings have been perplexing. "Perplexing, Councillor?" Vex'Nor prompted. "They appear primitive yet have achieved certain technological innovations that should be beyond their capacity. They wage war constantly yet have not destroyed themselves. They poison their planet yet occasionally attempt to save it. They are, in short, a contradiction in terms." Froptal's middle eye twitched. "Most concerning." High Councillor Drellmin gestured with her primary appendage, and the hologram shifted to display bipedal creatures of varying colors and shapes. Vex'Nor watched with fascination as they engaged in behaviors that seemed to have no logical pattern or purpose. "Why are those ones moving their bodies in synchronized patterns while the small ones throw colored paper into the air?" he asked. "They call it cheerleading," said Councillor Grack-Moore with a visible shudder. "We have yet to determine its purpose in their society." Drellmin cleared her throat sacs. "Ambassador, your mission is to establish formal diplomatic relations with the governing bodies of Earth and assess their readiness for potential Federation membership. Standard Protocol 5C. A straightforward assignment." Vex'Nor said confidently. "I shall prepare the customary cultural immersion briefings and—" "There is more," interrupted Grack-Moore. "But this assignment carries unique challenges. We have sent 3 diplomats to Earth previously." "I was unaware of prior missions," Vex'Nor said, his skin darkening with concern. "Yes, well." Grack-Moore's mandibles clicked uncomfortably. "The missions were classified after the diplomats returned. Were they harmed?" Vex'Nor asked, suddenly alert. "Not physically, no," said Drellmin. "But they were changed." An uncomfortable silence fell over the chamber. Finally, Councillor Froptal spoke. "Ambassador Zrenkar returned demanding what humans call weekends and refused to work more than 40 hours per week. Ambassador Ploon began wearing decorative cloth around his neck, called a tie despite having no neck, and Ambassador Quivlox." He paused dramatically. "Ambassador Quivlox came back and immediately submitted a request to establish a sports bar in the diplomatic quarter." Vex'Nor stared in confusion. "I don't understand the significance." "None of them could explain why," Drellmin said gravely. "When questioned, they merely said these things were awesome, or just made sense, you know. They became erratic, unpredictable. Ambassador Quivlox began ending formal communications with something called an emoji." A collective shudder passed through the council. "They are currently undergoing extensive rehabilitation," Grack-Moore added, "though I fear Ambassador Quivlox may be permanently affected. Last week she requested something called a pizza party for her rehabilitation group." Vex'Nor straightened his posture, his skin shifting to a confident orange. "High Councillors, I appreciate your concerns, but I assure you I am well prepared for this assignment. My psychological evaluations have always shown exceptional resistance to cultural contamination. My foundational principles in Federation protocol are unshakable. That is precisely why you were selected, said Drellmin. But we must emphasize the importance of limited exposure and maintain diplomatic formality at all times. Avoid what they call hanging out, and under no circumstances should you partake of their reality television or social media. I will uphold the highest standards of Federation diplomacy, Vex'Nor declared, his skin now glowing with a professional blue so pure it almost hurt the councillor's eyes. These humans, whatever their peculiarities, will be treated with the same detached respect we afford all primitive species. But their cultural oddities will not affect me. Councillor Frocktal leaned forward. That's exactly what Ambassador Quivlox said. Now she ends every council session by saying thanks for coming to my TED Talk. I am not Ambassador Quivlox. Vex'Nor said firmly. I will complete this mission with my faculties intact and return with a comprehensive assessment of Earth's readiness for Federation contact. Nothing more. As Vex'Nor left the chamber, the High Councillors exchanged worried glances. Should we have told him about their memes? Whispered Grakmor. No, said Drellmin firmly. No one is ever ready for those. Vex'Nor's diplomatic vessel materialized just outside Earth's atmosphere, cloaked to avoid detection by the planet's primitive scanning systems. The ship's AI had prepared him with basic language translation and cultural notes, though Vex'Nor found the data suspiciously sparse. Several sections were simply marked inexplicable, further research required. Initiating landing sequence at designated coordinates, announced the ship's AI. You will be meeting your human liaison at a location they call a Denny's parking lot. A ceremonial greeting site? Vex'Nor inquired. Unknown. Federation intelligence suggests it may be a neutral territory for diplomatic exchanges or possibly a religious site dedicated to someone named Denny. Vex'Nor adjusted his formal diplomatic robe as the ship descended. His preparation had been meticulous. He'd memorized 17 Earth languages, studied their global governance structures, and even practiced their formal greeting rituals. Whatever had affected the previous ambassadors would not compromise his mission. The ship landed with a soft hum in an empty section of black pavement marked with white lines. Through the viewscreen, Vex'Nor observed a squat building with illuminated signage. Several humans were entering and exiting, carrying what appeared to be nutrition packets. Your liaison approaches, the AI announced. Vex'Nor took a deep breath and activated the ship's ramp. As the door opened, he arranged his tentacles in the formal greeting position and set his chromatophores to diplomatic blue. Standing at the bottom of the ramp was a human male with a weathered face and an expression that Vex'Nor's cultural database identified as thoroughly unimpressed. He wore a rumpled garment with the words Earth Diplomatic Corps hastily printed on it. Ambassador Vex'Nor? The human asked, looking down at a small electronic device. Greetings, Earth representative, Vex'Nor said formally. I come in peace and fellowship from the Galactic Federation of United Species. I bring tidings of. Yeah, tidings, fellowship, peace. Got it, the human interrupted, tapping on his device. I'm Officer Jack Murphy, your liaison. Welcome to Earth. Try not to freak out the locals with the hole. He gestured vaguely at Vex'Nor's entire body, blue squidman thing. Vex'Nor's skin rippled with confusion. I have prepared the traditional 47-paragraph greeting. Would you prefer I continue? Jack looked up from his device. Did you seriously memorize a 47-paragraph speech for a Denny's parking lot? Is this not an appropriate diplomatic venue? Jack snorted. Not unless you consider maple syrup an ambassadorial tool. Look, the actual reception's in DC tomorrow. I'm just supposed to get you settled in your temporary quarters and make sure you don't, I don't know, dissolve in our atmosphere or something. Vex'Nor blinked all four eyes in sequence, the traditional gesture of diplomatic recalibration. I see. My apologies for the confusion. Perhaps we should proceed to the diplomatic housing? Yeah, about that, Jack said, scratching his neck. There's been a slight mix-up with your accommodations. The embassy suite's overbooked because of a regional furry convention. Furry convention? Trust me, you don't want to know. Anyway, you're staying at my place tonight. I hope you don't mind cats. Cats. Vex'Nor searched his database. Small predatory mammals kept as companions? Yeah, I've got 3. Or 5. Honestly, they just keep showing up. Jack gestured toward a ground vehicle nearby. That's my car. It's a bit of a mess, but it'll get us there. As they approached the vehicle, a loud sound erupted from a nearby building, causing Vex'Nor to instinctively release a cloud of defensive ink. Whoa. Jack jumped back, narrowly avoiding the blue-black cloud. That was just somebody's car alarm. Hey. My deepest apologies, Vex'Nor said, mortified. His skin had turned a deep purple of embarrassment. I was not expecting such an aggressive auditory assault. Jack looked down at his now ink-stained shoes. Great. These were new. He sighed. Listen, Earth is loud, weird, and mostly doesn't make sense. You're going to need to dial down the ink squirting if we're going to make it through the week. I assure you, Officer Murphy, I am a trained diplomatic professional. This minor incident is not representative of A human child exited the Denny's building, saw Vex'Nor and screamed cool. Mom, it's like the octopus from Finding Dory. We should go, Jack said quickly, opening the car door. Get in before someone tries to take a selfie with you. What is a selfie? Vex'Nor asked as he attempted to fold his tentacles into the small passenger compartment. Jack started the engine. It's like a picture but with more existential dread. Buckle up, Ambassador. This is going to be a long assignment. As they pulled away, Vex'Nor struggled with the seatbelt while attempting to maintain his diplomatic composure. The High Council's warning suddenly seemed less exaggerated than he had initially believed. Jack Murphy's apartment was what Federation cultural guides would classify as barely habitable. Mismatched furniture competed for floor space with stacks of paper, abandoned coffee mugs, and the promised cats which Vex'Nor counted as 7, but not the 3 or 5 Jack had mentioned. Home sweet home, Jack announced, tossing his keys into a bowl. Bathrooms down the hall, couch pulls out into a bed. Sort of. If you're desperate. Vex'Nor stood rigidly in the center of the room, unsure where to safely place his tentacles. Thank you for your hospitality. Perhaps I could review the diplomatic itinerary for tomorrow's formal reception. Jack opened a cooling unit and removed 2 cylindrical objects. The first rule of Earth diplomacy: never go into negotiations without proper preparation. He handed 1 cylinder to Vex'Nor. Beer? I am not familiar with this diplomatic preparation ritual, Vex'Nor said, examining the container. That's because it's not one. It's how normal people unwind after a day of dealing with bureaucratic nonsense. Jack demonstrated how to open the container and took a long drink. Go on, try it. No tentacles will fall off. Promise. Against his better judgment, Vex'Nor mimicked the action. The liquid was bitter and carbonated, causing his chromatophores to ripple with surprise. This is unusual. Yeah, it's cheap beer. Quality isn't the point. Jack collapsed onto the couch and gestured at a black screen on the wall. TV on, he commanded, and the screen illuminated. Vex'Nor's attention was immediately captured by the rapid succession of images and sounds. Humans in various states of distress were arguing about matters that seemed simultaneously trivial and of life-altering importance. What is this information channel? He asked, transfixed. The Bachelor. Reality TV. It's garbage, but it's entertaining garbage. Jack flipped through several more channels before settling on one showing humans preparing food while being berated by another human. Now this is culture. This is representative of Earth culture. Vex'Nor asked, slowly sinking onto the couch beside Jack. A small orange cat immediately claimed his lap. More than any diplomatic briefing you'll get tomorrow, Jack confirmed. See, that guy's losing his mind because the risotto is undercooked. Humans take food very seriously. 3 hours later, Vex'Nor had consumed 2 beers and developed strong opinions about which human contestant deserved to be the top chef. His formal diplomatic posture had relaxed considerably, and his chromatophores had settled into a comfortable orange-pink glow that matched the cat now sleeping across his tentacles. "I do not understand," Vex'Nor said, gesturing at the screen with a tentacle. "Chef Marcus clearly has superior technical skills, yet the judges favor Chef Brittany's rustic approach. This judging system lacks objective metrics." "That's entertainment for you," Jack said, returning from the kitchen with something called microwave burritos. He handed one to Vex'Nor. "Here, try Earth cuisine that doesn't require a $50 tip." Vex'Nor cautiously unwrapped the object. "The Federation briefing mentioned your species consumes nutrients 3 times daily. Is this one of those occasions?" "This is what we call a midnight snack. It's the meal you eat when you know you shouldn't be eating." The burrito was a revelation. The combination of textures, the inexplicable melted substance called cheese, the spicy undertones, Vex'Nor's taste receptors were overwhelmed in the most pleasant way. "This is remarkable," he said, his formal diplomatic vocabulary failing him. "We have nothing like this in the Federation." "Wait until you try pizza," Jack said with a knowing smile. The next morning, Vex'Nor awoke on the couch with 2 cats using his tentacles as hammocks. On the table before him sat a steaming mug of dark liquid that emitted an enticing aroma. "Morning, Ambassador," Jack said, already dressed in slightly more formal attire. "Figured you could use some coffee before we head to DC." "Coffee?" Vex'Nor inquired, gently extricating himself from the felines. "Earth's gift to the universe. Drink up. The formal reception starts in 3 hours, and traffic's going to be hell." One sip of the bitter, stimulating beverage, and Vex'Nor understood why previous ambassadors had been compromised. His neural pathways lit up with a pleasant buzz, his chromatophores brightened, and his thought processes accelerated. "This is highly effective," he said, taking another eager sip. "Yeah, wait until you discover espresso," Jack laughed. "Now, let's go over some quick guidelines for today. First, no matter what anyone says, don't mention Florida. Second, if someone asks about Area 51, just laugh like they made a joke. And third, most important, if anyone offers you something called tequila, run the other way." As Vex'Nor nodded along, absorbing this non-standard diplomatic advice, while drinking his coffee, he realized with mild alarm that he was enjoying himself. The Federation protocols seemed increasingly distant and oddly rigid. "And more thing," Jack added, tossing him a small device. "I got you a smartphone. Figured you might want to check out some Earth culture when I'm not around." The screen illuminated with colorful icons, each promising new discoveries. "Just stay off Twitter," Jack warned. "No one comes back from that the same." The United Nations headquarters buzzed with diplomatic activity. Representatives from various Earth nations gathered in the main assembly hall, all eager for their first official contact with the Galactic Federation. Security was tight, media was kept at a distance, and the atmosphere crackled with anticipation. Vex'Nor stood backstage, reviewing his prepared remarks on a digital tablet. After 3 cups of coffee and a morning spent scrolling through what Jack called dank memes on his new smartphone, the ambassador was finding it difficult to focus on Federation diplomatic protocols. "Remember," Jack said, straightening his tie, "these people have been waiting decades for aliens to show up. Try to sound impressive and mysterious, but not threatening, like Yoda, but with better grammar." "Yoda? Is this a diplomatic rank I should be familiar with?" Vex'Nor asked, his upper right eye twitching slightly from caffeine. "And just a reference." "Don't worry about," Jack paused, looking at Vex'Nor more closely. "Did you change color?" Vex'Nor glanced down at his skin. Instead of the formal blue-green of diplomatic engagement, his chromatophores were displaying a swirling pattern of bright colors that pulsed in time with the pop song he'd heard on the car radio earlier. "Most unusual," he muttered, attempting to reset to standard diplomatic hues. His skin flickered briefly before settling on a color that was decidedly more teal than regulation blue. "It appears the coffee has temporarily affected my chromatophore control." "Great," Jack sighed. "Just try not to turn neon during your speech. You're on in 5 minutes." The Secretary General's introduction was mercifully brief. When Vex'Nor was finally called to the podium, he glided forward with practiced diplomatic grace, though several of his tentacles seemed to have developed their own rhythmic swagger. Distinguished representatives of Earth, he began, his voice modulator set to authoritative yet benevolent, just as he'd practiced. It is my honor to formally greet you on behalf of the Galactic Federation of United Species. The assembly hall was silent, every human face turned toward him in rapt attention. This was the moment he had trained for his entire career, the perfect opportunity to demonstrate his diplomatic excellence. The Federation extends greetings of peace, and Vex'Nor paused, momentarily distracted as his tablet displayed a notification. Someone named DankMeQueen69 had sent him something called a friend request. Peace and, prompted the Secretary General, peace and cooperation. Vex'Nor continued, dismissing the notification with a tentacle. For countless cycles, the Federation has observed your species with great interest as you have developed your civilization. Your progress from primitive tool users to digital technology has been most, The word from his prepared text was adequate, but suddenly that seemed rude. These humans had accomplished quite a lot for a species that still required sleep. Most impressive, he amended, especially considering you invented pizza without any outside help. A confused murmur rippled through the assembly. Entomos. As is customary, Vex'Nor pressed on. I will now outline the 57 preconditions for potential admission to the Galactic Federation, a process that typically takes between 300 and 500 of your Earth years. He activated his presentation, and a holographic display materialized above the podium. The first slide showed a complex bureaucratic flowchart that stretched into hundreds of tiny, interconnected boxes. The application process begins with Form GF 7720B, which must be submitted in triplicate to 7 different administrative divisions, he explained, watching the human's expressions shift from excitement to confusion to barely concealed horror. Each planetary government must then complete a separate assessment of. His tablet buzzed again. This time it was a message from Jack. They're falling asleep. Do something. Vex'Nor looked up and realized the Secretary General was indeed stifling a yawn. The Federation protocol was clear: he should continue with the detailed procedural explanation, regardless of audience engagement. But something inside him rebelled. 3 days ago, he would have continued reciting bureaucratic procedures until every human in the room was comatose. Now, after just 1 day on Earth, that seemed stupid. Stupid. Actually, he said, deactivating the hologram with a casual flick of his tentacle. That's all a bunch of bureaucratic nonsense. The Secretary General's eyebrows shot up. The truth is. Vex'Nor continued, his skin shifting to a relaxed purple. We're here to learn about you as much as you're here to learn about us. And from what I've seen so far, you humans are weird, chaotic, and surprisingly creative. You created reality television, which is simultaneously the worst and most compelling form of entertainment in the galaxy. A few chuckles rippled through the audience. Instead of boring you with forms, let me tell you what the Federation really wants to know. Vex'Nor leaned forward conspiratorially. How do you make your coffee? Because that stuff is amazing. The laughter grew louder. And why does pineapple on pizza cause such diplomatic incidents among your own kind? My research indicates this is nearly as divisive as your political systems. By now, several diplomats were openly laughing. The Secretary General looked torn between amusement and alarm. In the wings, Jack was making frantic cutting motions across his throat. In conclusion, Vex'Nor said, suddenly remembering he was supposed to be a dignified representative of an advanced civilization, the Federation looks forward to continued dialogue with Earth. We have much to discuss, including your application for membership, your technological development, and whether or not Ross and Rachel were really on a break. In London. The room erupted in applause and laughter. Vex'Nor bowed slightly, all 4 eyes blinking in satisfaction. As he left the podium, his communicator buzzed with an incoming transmission from Federation headquarters. The message was brief. Ambassador Vex'Nor, report for immediate extraction and decontamination. Decontamination Chamber 7, Alpha hummed with the gentle blue glow of sterilization fields. Vex'Nor sat in the center of the chamber, tentacles folded in his lap, while a team of Federation medical specialists observed him from behind reinforced glass. Ambassador Vex'Nor, Dr. Trelb said through the intercom, please state your full designation and purpose for the record. Vex'Nor cleared his throat. Ambassador Vex'Nor, first-class diplomatic envoy of the Galactic Federation, assigned to preliminary contact assessment of the planet designated as Earth. And how would you describe your current condition? Vex'Nor considered the question. By all Federation medical standards, he was in perfect health. His vital signs were normal, his neural patterns showed no signs of pathogenic infection, and his chromatophores had returned to their standard diplomatic blue. And yet, I'd say I'm good. Pretty chill, actually. He paused. Is there any chance I could get some coffee in here? Behind the glass, Dr. Trelb's antennae drooped in dismay. She made a notation on her tablet and exchanged glances with her colleagues. Ambassador, she continued, your extraction was ordered following what the High Council described as erratic behavior unbecoming of a Federation representative. Would you care to explain your actions during the Earth diplomatic reception? Vex'Nor shrugged, a human gesture he'd picked up from Jack. I read the room. Federation protocols weren't working. I was putting the humans to sleep, so I pivoted to a more effective communication strategy. Pivoted, Dr. Trelb repeated, the unfamiliar term causing her to consult her translator. Yeah, changed tactics on the fly. Kept it real. Vex'Nor's skin rippled briefly with a pattern that looked suspiciously like a meme Jack had shown him. The medical team huddled together, whispering urgently. After a moment, Dr. Trelb returned to the intercom. Ambassador, we're going to run a few cognitive tests. Please identify the following image. A hologram appeared in the chamber, showing a formal Federation banquet. Dozens of representatives from various species were seated in perfect hierarchical order, consuming nutritional supplements with precise, identical movements. That's a Federation diplomatic dinner, Vex'Nor said correctly. And how would you describe this event? Vex'Nor studied the image. 3 days ago, he would have called it the pinnacle of civilized behavior. How? Boring as hell, he said. No music, no conversation, everyone eating the same tasteless nutrition cubes. Where's the fun? Where's the pizza? Dr. Trelb made another notation. And this image? The hologram changed to show a Federation administrative office, where hundreds of identical cubicles housed bureaucrats working in silent synchronization. Standard Federation Processing Center, Vex'Nor identified. Your assessment? A soul-crushing waste of potential, he replied without hesitation. These people need casual Fridays and maybe some plants. Also, has anyone ever heard of work-life balance? No wonder we have a 300-year backlog on membership applications. A collective gasp came through the intercom. Final question, Ambassador, Dr. Trelb said, her voice tight with concern. What is your opinion on the Federation's policy of emotional suppression for diplomatic personnel? Vex'Nor laughed, a sound so startling that one of the medical technicians dropped a tablet. You mean the policy where we pretend not to have feelings while simultaneously making passive-aggressive comments during council meetings? Yeah, not a fan. Humans have this thing called therapy where they actually talk about their problems. Wild concept, right? The hologram disappeared. Dr. Trelb's voice came through the intercom once more, now heavy with resignation. Thank you, Ambassador. The High Council will be informed of your condition. 3 hours later, Vex'Nor stood before the High Council, his posture relaxed in a way that made the councillors visibly uncomfortable. The High Councillor Drellmin studied him with clinical detachment. Ambassador Vex'Nor, she began. The medical team reports that you show no signs of physical contamination, parasitic infection, or mind control. And yet, you have clearly been, affected by your time on Earth. Changed, corrected Counselor Froptal, just like the others. Vex'Nor nodded. I've gained perspective, yes. A perspective? Drellmin repeated, as if the word were foreign. Earth is chaotic and contradictory, sure, but there's something vibrant about their culture. They embrace their differences instead of suppressing them. They experience life instead of just processing it. Vex'Nor's skin shifted to a warm orange of enthusiasm. They have coffee, reality TV, and memes. Have you ever seen a meme, High Counselor? They're hilarious. Drellmin's eye ridges furrowed. Ambassador Quivlox mentioned these memes as well. She attempted to show me one involving a small white creature making grammatically incorrect statements about cheeseburgers. The classic. Vex'Nor nodded appreciatively. Ambassador, Counselor Grakmore interjected. Do you understand why your behavior is concerning? The Federation has maintained diplomatic stability for 12,000 years through strict adherence to protocol and emotional regulation. Your actions threaten that stability. Vex'Nor considered this. Maybe some instability is exactly what the Federation needs. We spend so much time filling out forms that we've forgotten why we're doing it in the first place. Humans are messy and emotional, and they make terrible decisions sometimes, but they also create art and music and double-stuffed Oreos. The council chambers fell silent. Finally, High Counselor Drellmin spoke. Ambassador Vex'Nor, it is the decision of this council that you be placed on administrative leave pending full rehabilitation. Your contact with other diplomatic personnel will be restricted to prevent further contamination. Vex'Nor smiled. No problem. I could use a vacation anyway. Is the rehabilitation center the same one where Ambassador Quivlox is staying? Because she promised to teach me something called karaoke. The councillors exchanged alarmed glances. Separate facilities will be arranged, Drellmin said firmly. The Galactic Security Council meeting chamber hadn't been used in over 300 years. Unlike the regular council chambers with their sterile white surfaces and perfect acoustic dampening, this room was designed for crisis management, its walls lined with tactical displays showing real-time updates from across the galaxy. Today, every screen displayed the same image, Earth, innocently rotating on its axis, blissfully unaware it had been classified as a level 5 mimetic hazard. The situation is worse than we feared, High Counselor Drellmin announced to the assembled security officials. We have now had 4 diplomatic missions to Earth. All 4 ambassadors returned, compromised. A holographic projection appeared in the center of the room, showing surveillance footage of the rehabilitation center. Ambassador Quivlox and Ambassador Vex'Nor were seated together in what was supposed to be a strictly controlled therapeutic environment. Instead, they appeared to be engaged in some form of competitive beverage consumption while shouting at a sporting event on a view screen. That's a foul. Vex'Nor could be heard yelling, sloshing a brown liquid from a container labeled root beer. No way. Quivlox countered, her tentacles gesticulating wildly. The ball was tipped. Clean block. The footage shifted to another room where Ambassador Renkar was teaching a group of junior diplomatic aides something called the Macarena. Despite our containment efforts, continued Security Director Vrex Pole, Earth cultural contamination has spread to 14 diplomatic support staff, 7 medical personnel, and, most alarmingly, 2 members of the High Council itself. Gasps echoed through the chamber. Which councillors? Demanded Grakmore, looking suspiciously at his colleagues. Security Director Vrex Pole hesitated. Councillor Froptal was discovered last week attempting to establish something called a fantasy football league. And you, Councillor Grakmore, have been observed repeatedly using the phrase "it is what it is" during official proceedings. All eyes turned to Grakmore, who shifted uncomfortably in his seat. I simply find it accurately expresses certain inevitabilities, he mumbled. Drellmin's expression hardened. This contamination cannot be allowed to spread further. The Security Council has unanimously approved Emergency Protocol 9C. Earth is hereby quarantined from all Federation contact. No diplomatic missions, no observation teams, no communication whatsoever. But the humans are expecting a follow-up to Ambassador Vex'Nor's visit. protested one of the junior counselors. They've been sending transmissions daily asking about our position on something called streaming rights for the Great British Bake Off. Those transmissions will remain unanswered, Drellmin declared. Earth represents a unique threat to Federation stability. Their cultural influence is too potent, too infectious. Meanwhile, 17 decks below the Security Council chamber, in the lowest level of Rehabilitation Center 12B, Vex'Nor and 5 other Earth-touched diplomats gathered in what was officially designated as Communal Nutrition Area 3, but which they had renamed the Speakeasy. They've implemented the quarantine protocol, Vex'Nor announced, checking his smuggled Earth smartphone. Earth is officially classified as a metic hazard, no contact permitted. Ambassador Plune, still wearing his beloved tie despite ongoing attempts by medical staff to remove it, shook his head sadly. So, no more Earth pizza? No more K-pop updates, mourned Ambassador Zrenkar. No more cat videos, added Ambassador Quivlox with a heavy sigh. Vex'Nor lowered his voice. That's what they think. I have a contact in communications who's been downloading Earth's internet data for me, and I'd been working on something. He removed a small device from beneath his rehabilitation robe. I call it the EarthNet. It can bypass Federation firewalls and connect directly to human broadcasting signals. The other ambassadors gathered around in excitement. I've also established a secure communication channel with Jack Murphy, Vex'Nor continued. He's been keeping me updated on Earth events. Did you know they have something called food trucks now? Mobile nutrition dispensaries that specialize in fusion cuisine. Incredible, breathed Ambassador Plune. But more importantly, Vex'Nor said, his voice dropping to a whisper, I've been spreading Earth culture throughout the rehabilitation center. The medical staff think they're treating us, but we're actually converting them. 3 of my therapists now take weekends off, and the head administrator has started a collection of what humans call bobbleheads. 6 levels above them, the security director was delivering the final part of his briefing to the High Council. In conclusion, we believe we've contained the worst of the contamination. The affected diplomats are isolated, their communications monitored, and strict protocols are in place to prevent further spread. And Earth itself? Asked Councillor Drellmin. Our official position is that they failed preliminary assessment for Federation contact. We've classified them as a pre-integration civilization requiring another 1,000 years of development before reconsideration. And the unofficial position? Pressed Councillor Grackmore. The security director hesitated. Unofficially, Earth is the most dangerous planet we've ever encountered. Not because of their weapons or technology, but because of their memes and vibes. Their culture is a mimetic virus for which we have no immunity. As the meeting concluded, Councillor Drellmin returned to her private chambers, sealed the door, and checked that her privacy shields were active. Then, from a hidden compartment in her desk, she withdrew a small Earth device Jack Murphy had given to Ambassador Vex'Nor, who had passed it to Ambassador Quivlox, who had smuggled it to her during a supposedly secure debriefing. Drellmin inserted small audio receivers into her hearing orifices, selected something called a playlist, and allowed her chromatophores to shift into patterns of pure pleasure as the human musical group ABBA began to play. 300 levels below, in the most secure archive of the Federation's historical records, a new entry was added to the official database. Earth, classification, quarantine, threat level, extreme contact protocol, prohibited reason, officially listed as insufficient technological development, actual reason, level 10 clearance only, they're too contagious.